Welcome to the CereCore podcast, where we focus on the intersection of healthcare and IT. From practical conversations to strategic thought leadership, let's unpack the decisions, challenges, and journey of those whose purpose it is to deliver technology that improves healthcare in their communities. Lynn Falcone is the CEO of Cuero Regional Hospital and a healthcare executive with more than 30 years of experience working in for-profit, not-for-profit, and government hospitals. She's known for the many ways she puts patients, providers, and clinical care teams and quality patient care first. Lynn is an active board member of the Texas Organization of Rural and Community Hospitals and is a gifted mentor, coach, and relationship builder. Lynn, thank you very much for joining the CereCore podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Phil. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, we always like to start with a little bit of background. So Lynn, if you don't mind, take our listeners, who are mostly healthcare IT leaders into Cuero Regional Hospital and rural healthcare in Texas. What should our audience understand about healthcare operations in your community? Some of the toughest challenges you face, maybe something that might be surprising about running a hospital in rural Texas. You name it. Just take us behind the scenes of your world as CEO.
Sure. I'm always happy to brag on my hospital and talk about my team here. And I think in a rural setting, your sense of team is incredibly important to be successful. I spent most of my healthcare career in large urban settings, so getting used to rural healthcare was a little bit of an eye-opener. I've been here in Cuero for almost 8 years now, and my hospital is a 49-bed rural hospital. We're a PPS hospital versus critical access, and we have a wide array of services. Med-surg telemetry, we do surgical procedures, we have an active emergency department, we offer intensive care services, we still deliver babies. We are one of the rural hospitals that still does have the opportunity to deliver babies. We own and operate a home health agency. We own and operate EMS, and that is something you would not find in a large setting. It's fairly common in a rural setting, but it's really not across the board. We also own and operate a wellness center in town, which really gets at how we help take care of our community. And then we have 5 rural health clinics, which I employ about 8 different providers and 6 different mid-levels across those clinics. I have 2 in Cuero and 3 outside of the community to really take care of other rural settings adjacent to Cuero. So we cast a fairly broad net for an organization our size. We employ roughly 400 people. In and amongst all of those services. We are a tax district, which is a whole different level. So I report to the board here in Cuero, and it's a 5-person board. And I think some of the things that I had to get used to, like I said, I've been here for almost 8 years. But when I go to the local HEB, I'm still the new administrator, and it all goes to what I'm being compared to. My chief nursing officer, who has been here for a little over 40 years. My assistant administrator has been here for over 30 years. And there's some of my nursing leaders and other leaders that have very long tenure. So while I feel pretty good at almost 8, there's a lot of stability in that sense. So that kind of draws the picture of what we offer to our community.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you touched on the community and the board, and still after 8 years being the newcomer to that. And so it kind of, dovetails nicely into, how has that journey changed for you in that regard when it comes to your interaction with the board, when it comes to your interactions with the community? How have you been able to to begin to earn that trust and buy-in as you move forward, and maybe just tell us a little bit about kind of those relationships and how you've been able to manage those.
Well, I think in any setting, but probably more so in a rural setting, it's important to get involved in your community. When I came, we're a little unique in that back in 2015, 2016, the board of directors struck an agreement with the Methodist healthcare system in San Antonio to strike up an affiliation agreement. And the board at that time saw the struggle of rural facilities and the number of rural hospitals that had been closing, and were looking at partnerships to help make sure that didn't happen. And so when I came in under the Methodist partnership, there's a lot of angst that Methodist was owning the hospital, and that is truly not the case. It is an affiliation agreement, and we have access to the Health Trust Purchasing Group and education, policies, but really the education is a big piece. So not only was there overcoming the new administrator role, but trying to convince the community that this was a good move and not to shun the organization because an outsider owned it, and that the board did still really hold control. So over the last several years, I've been involved in the Rotary Club. Most recently, back early on, I also changed up our employee evaluations to include the requirement that employees have to donate 3 hours of volunteer time to our community, and they wear their hospital shirts, and let the community know that there is large representation. We're the largest employer in the county, and so let them see what role the hospital plays outside of just providing healthcare. And each of my senior leaders in the organization are part of a different local entity like the chamber. I recently was put on the Cuero Development Corporation and now serve as the vice president there. So it's really, how do you get in and how do you get out to those communities? And we undertake a lot of different activities across our community. Right now, for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're out at all the local football games. The Cuero football game, I was at Yoakum on Friday night, Goliad this week, and Kennedy the following week, and dressed in our shirts and really doing what we can to promote breast cancer awareness. And so it's just, as the leader, it's more and more important to get out into the community and create those relationships.
It's spot on, and it's a story that we hear quite a lot, but certainly that community involvement is just so critical. Because you're delivering amazing service, but at the same point, they also need to see you in their daily lives too, when it's not in a emergency type of situation. And so that's fantastic.
I will tell you, I'm sorry. I was just going to add to that is, people don't think about healthcare until you need healthcare. Yet the hospital's there. I drive by it every other day. Mm-hmm. But what we have found is working with our community to find out why they might go someplace else. Are they not aware that we have the service? Are they not aware that we can do it? So we've really undertaken an awareness campaign most recently. And I'm really happy to put out the fact that, I never dreamed in a rural hospital that I would have a Da Vinci robot, but I now have a surgeon and a Da Vinci robot. I have the first 3T MRI in the area, and that's pulled a lot of people to our organization that maybe would have bypassed us. So working with my staff, I really believe that rural facilities have to work harder at quality and safety, because there is an image in many people's minds that you don't get the quality that you would get, that bigger is always better. And having worked both, I would be a staunch supporter to say that's not true. And I'm just really proud of the fact that we've been a top 100 hospital. We're like 4 or 5 years running on Gold Plus program for our stroke program. We're EMS bronze and silver for target stroke and target cardiac for our pre-hospital services. And making sure that our community is aware of what that means, that they really are in good hands, is kind of what we're undertaking right now. So,
no, it's communication is so critical. And so, first you've got to have the engagement, and then you've got to tell the story.
Right.
And, people love to hear those stories, and, the sense of what you all have done in and for that community is just spectacular. And, certainly now being a part of, all of those additional initiatives and boards, et cetera, quite an accomplishment. And I think we even touched on Texas Organization of Rural Community Hospitals, also known as TORCH, earlier. So yet another thing that you serve on from the board of directors standpoint. So tell me a little bit about just that collaborative effort that you deal with from a TORCH standpoint, and how that has been helping kind of the community healthcare there in Texas.
Well, TORCH is a phenomenal organization, and they are amazing advocates for rural healthcare. John Henderson is the CEO and has phenomenal relationship with the Texas legislatures, makes regular trips to DC, all advocacy for rural hospitals. And that's huge, because as a rural administrator, you can't get your hands into all of that, and knowing that there's someone out there that can help you with that, or you can throw out a lifeline to say, where are we at with this type of legislation? That's huge. Sitting on the board most recently, we initiated the clinically integrated network. So today's world is all moving towards value-based medicine, and our payers are figuring out how not to pay, but we got to figure out how to still get money in the door. And some of those changes, like Medicare Advantage plans, I promise I won't get on my soapbox, but have been very, very challenging for rural hospitals. Yes. And so one of the things that TORCH has provided for all rural hospitals free of charge, it comes with your membership, is information and educational information to share with our communities about trying to make an educated decision on whether to stay with traditional Medicare, go to a Medicare Advantage plan, and what's right for you versus, Jimmy J.J. Walker would never steer them wrong on a TV commercial. And so there's a lot of different access in that standpoint. The clinically integrated network is an opportunity for the rural hospitals across the state to band together and negotiate with payers for quality add-on bonuses. So from a compliance standpoint, they don't negotiate our contracts, but for different quality measures to help us work together as a team with Medicare Advantage plans or an accountable care organization, that we're doing it as a group and we're learning it as a group. And it gives us more power because of what the field brings to the ACO or to the MA plan versus one standalone hospital. And so honestly, that's been huge for us to be able to feel like you're not on an island all by yourself.
It's so critical. So critical. We always like to ask the individuals, particularly the ones that are running hospitals, just the question about culture, right? And kind of your leadership approach and style. And you've made mention of the fact that, a lot of your senior folks there have been with the organization 30 years, 40 years established. So, maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing with our listeners, kind of what's your, and I don't know if it's a secret or not, but what's your approach been, or what's your secret to, to building that mission motivated, patient focused, quality driven team? And how have you kind of been able to build those relationships and win them over to the vision that you've executed on over the past 8 years?
Well, I thought back about this one, and there's been so many things that go into how you build your culture. And early on, I really set forth a sense of communication and transparency. And every Friday, with few exceptions, I email all of my staff state of the union, what's going on in the organization. I might do recognitions, but really establishing a line of communication with all of the staff. We use leadership rounding out and talking to the staff. We do daily patient safety huddles, talking about what's going on with the patients that are in our house, what's come through the emergency department, what do we need to tackle today? And that's all in the name of really transparency, communication. Everybody needs to know the why behind what we do. So I think it's being approachable. And Phil, you and I have met face to face. And when I walk in the door at 6'4", I can come across as fairly unapproachable. And I think over time, I have worked very hard to overcome that and to be very approachable. And my joke is when they see me coming, they don't run anymore. They're used to me being out on the floors in the departments. And so, I tell them, you're not just a housekeeper. You control the impact of our environment when someone first walks in the door. You're the first impression when you're the registration clerk, and it takes a whole village. And, if you don't think you're part of the village, we need to sit down and chat. But to me, it's really communication. And yes, I might be the CEO or the administrator of the organization, but I'm no different than they are when it comes to caring for our community.
That's excellent. And yes, it's that communication and constant communication and being approachable and listening is just so critical for folks that are running these organizations, whether it's at the helm like you or an IT director, CIO level position. I mean, it's absolutely critical. And I think once people then begin to understand that and see that in practice day in and day out, they begin to build that trust. And once that trust is established, then it's amazing what an organization can do when they all get on the same page. So really,
I'll tell you, years ago, and I can't tell you exactly when, I asked, I think it was at an all-employee forum, who can tell me what the hospital mission statement is? My CNO, the one that had been here for 40 plus years, and maybe 2 or 3 other people reluctantly raised their hands because they could recite the mission statement. And so I had identified folks from across the organization and put them in a room and said, it's your responsibility. You've been identified, and it's not me sitting behind a desk. And they rewrote our mission and our vision statement. And now we say that every day before huddle, before staff meetings, just to put us all on the same page for what we're trying to accomplish that day, that meeting, that event. So it's been kind of nice.
Critical. I think it's, And sometimes you can lose sight, you can lose focus, right? The tasks of the day, get overwhelming. But sometimes there's just that simple reminder as to the why.
Correct.
And tying back to the mission. And then you're like, okay, I can take a breath. I remember why, and I can execute. So now that's fantastic. So you have now started on an EHR implementation journey with MEDITECH Expanse. And, certainly, particularly for a lot of organizations that have been on legacy MEDITECH systems or other systems in the past, there's always that question of, why should we, do this? And then really of timing, right? And so I would love for you, if you could, just to share some of your perspective a little bit as to the why. You've chosen as an organization to move towards the modern EHR system, and then what was it about the timing, and what went into making the decision that now was the right time for Cuero?
Well, that is such a loaded question, and it kind of makes me giggle. But I had been here maybe a year, and the board of directors had been to THA or Torch meeting and talking with vendors and new opportunities that were out there. And there's been a board push for several years to upgrade our EHR. When I came in, I was not at all familiar with MEDITECH, and quickly realized that we needed a new system because I couldn't get data out of my system that was going to help me be a better leader to the organization. And for instance, was the only way I could find out a particular doctor's ordering habits for laboratory was how many results printed on his printer. That was my only way to do that. And so I quickly realized, yes, we need to undergo this. However, we started down the path and thought we were ready. And I was very reluctant because I knew that we had a very antiquated infrastructure. Yes. Which was a little scary to learn that we still had tape drives in our organization. That's gone, by the way, but we still had tape drives. And I thought you could sit in my parking lot and hack my system with a cell phone. We ended up changing some IT leadership and really digging into the right services for us. And we knew, being a MEDITECH hospital, we were going to stay a MEDITECH hospital. The difference was, in my 5 rural health clinics, we are all scripts. And so we are functioning on 2 different platforms, which is an incredible challenge for one small organization. So between data-driven, ease of use, we knew that we absolutely had to go this way. But we really spent the last 4 to 5 years is upgrading our infrastructure, our security systems, and we finally were at the point that we said, okay, now is the time to go. We've had board support the entire way through by keeping them informed of the why we weren't going to pull the trigger years ago and what we wanted to do over time. But it really took a bit to get the infrastructure up to support any system.
It makes good sense, and just so critical for having that board support and keeping that line of communication open and having them on board and excited about it. So, you made mention a little bit of, okay, you've got some disparate systems, all scripts and legacy MEDITECH, and looking to bring some of that together. I think if you were to look back, say post go live, once you're through the project and into operating optimization type of mode, what would you say? Hey, that project was completely worth it. What are those things that you're looking for that you would look back as an organization and say, yep, all of the challenge of an implementation, all of the hard work, it was worth it because of what?
I think it's going to be maybe three aspects, but really when we set out to do this was make it easier to use, patient safety. Patient safety is one of my hot buttons, that it is all about the patient and what are we doing to keep those patients safe. And when you go from one platform to another platform and you're not sure if your interfaces are working appropriately, that what goes in actually comes out the other side. That's critical to me. So ease of use, patient safety, and then the ability to get the data that comes out of it. So those are the three things that on the backside that I'm looking for. Healthcare has changed in the last 30 years. Unfortunately, my EHR hasn't changed at the same pace as healthcare. And I think we have got to do more to get ourselves into today's current day and then do a better job of keeping it up to date as we continue through. But I think if I had to point to one, I'd still point back to the patient safety by making processes easier and better communication and reduce human entry where it doesn't have to be.
I think you're spot on there. And certainly you touched on the technical aspect of the work that was required just to lay the foundation in order to kick this project off. But maybe if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about just how you've, aside from the technical aspects of it, how you've gotten the organization ready as a whole, right? Because everyone's engaged, everybody's involved.
Everybody.
From the leadership all the way down the chain. A change like this, a project like this, impacts everybody. So maybe share with our listeners, kind of how you've gotten the entire organization ready for this. Maybe some of your communication tips or creative ways that you've gotten folks bought in and then engaged on what needs to take place for the implementation?
Well, I think keeping the communication out there regarding what we want to do, what we're working towards, getting folks to look at it, be hands-on, to say, wow, that's kind of cool. And even key staff members, even below the leadership level, has been very important
Yes.
in seeing it. And one of my physicians who helped design all scripts on the clinic side years ago is kind of coming along kicking and screaming. And so sending him to a site where it is up and running and getting his reluctant buy-in is huge on my clinic side.
Sure.
But we have had to also engage in help, because as we look at the size of our organization, and I'm going to design and get my drug library up and make sure it talks to the ordering module and the nursing module. I have one pharmacist who staffs my hospital. And so looking to say, who else, I'm going to have to use that pharmacist to help in the build, but how else can I do this with just one pharmacy and keep operations going? Same in the laboratory. And so my real introduction to CereCore there is getting some of that help on the ground has been absolute requirement, because we never could undertake the project. And so identifying folks out in our organization that can work with the key consultants, and then of course all the MEDITECH folks, has given them a little bit at ease, but they're still anxious as our product is being delivered and we're going into the design phase.
It's important to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They've got people that they can lean on, who've been there and done that. I think nobody has a crystal ball. There's always little things that pop up from time to time from an EHR implementation standpoint. But with the decades of experience that you all have, and certainly from a CereCore perspective, we've been at the MEDITECH implementation business for I think 30 years now. I think collectively we're in good hands on the project. And so you touched on a couple of these things, but I think one of the things that you made mention of again is just that communication as to the why. Back to the organization and back to the team is being so critical. And that's just not a one-time deal, right? That is at the beginning, it's in the middle, and it's at the end. All throughout a process. It is one of those things where it's like, nope, do you remember why? Oh yeah, I remember why. Okay, let's find those wins for each one of the, the lines of business leaders, for each one of those physicians. Because yes, when there's ownership in a previous system, sometimes it is a hard thing to bring them along. So are there any other kind of keys to success, that you guys are tracking from that standpoint?
No, those are the major ones. I think looking back after this is done that you brought up, number one, I think we'll all feel like it's just giving birth and you don't want to go through it again for a long time. But my goal is to have my staff say, wow, this is a great tool. And, I keep telling them it's not going to be perfect and you will have support when we go live. It's, again, just keeping them with their eye on the ball, maybe. But I think I want them to be excited. But
yes. Well, it's exciting. It's scary, but I love your analogy, because as I was thinking about this, it's like giving birth. And, as parents, we all know that's like, yes, that whole process is hard and harder on some than others. But then the work begins too, right?
That's exactly right.
Baby doesn't raise itself. So that work does continue. And so I think that's a great analogy that you bring up, where it's like, no, it's not, the work isn't done. Now you are on a platform that is going to meet the needs of the organization long term. That's still going to require work. That's still going to require care and feeding. That's still going to require, as things change inside of your organization, inside of your community, inside of your service lines, et cetera, it will always require that care to make sure that it is the best that it can be for you going forward. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think you have to let them know that our goal is to always be better. It won't be perfect, but them being able to give feedback on how to make it better is key. So yes, you might get frustrated tomorrow with this new system and you want to throw it out the window, but I'd really love for you to constructively tell the right people. You can tell me, but I might not be the right one to get it fixed. Is the team in place has to be willing to listen, to say, oh yeah, we can fix that. Or, you know what, it's got to be this way. And here's the why behind how it is. And so I think as an organization, we're poised for it. I mean, the true test will be, of course, when we go live and everybody's freaking out that we have patients and, something's not working how they're used to. Yeah. But
absolutely. Well, wonderful. Well, Lynn, thank you very much for your sharing a little bit about not only yourself, but your journey there at Cuero and providing our listeners some insights as it relates to starting the process of a new EHR journey. So are there any closing thoughts that you might have? I always kind of just open it up at the end for any last words of wisdom for our listening audience, and quite frankly, could be on anything that we covered or anything that we didn't cover today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Talking through things kind of is a self-realization to say, am I going down the right path? Or, wow, does it cue something that I need to be refocus some attention to. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it and share kind of the path that my team is on. And it takes a whole village, and my village is moving. So it's nice right now, it's a nice thing.
It does. And, I think the more stories that we can, bring to the masses, it raises all ships. Right. And so, we're all at different points and different journeys, but at the same point, there are those common themes that we all deal with. And so, Lynn, again, thank you so much for sharing, for taking the time today, and for your partnership over the years. It means a lot to us, and we're excited about this journey with you all.
Well, I'm happy you're there to support us. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for listening to the CereCore podcast. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform for more episodes. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Visit our U.S. website at CereCore.net. And for those abroad, visit CereCoreInternational.net. Learn more about our services and find resources. At CereCore, we are healthcare operators at heart, and know the difference that the right IT partner can make in delivering quality patient care 24/7. Let's help make IT better. Here's to the journey.